Hi there, my name is Trolls and welcome to Soundpaint, or Soundpaint 2.5 to be specific. This is a massive upgrade to our free Soundpaint engine, the fastest and perhaps the fastest growing sample engine. The free Soundpaint engine already contains over 120 deep and ultra deep sample instruments, from dozens of industry-defining cinematic tools to hyper-realistic legato instruments, from ultra deep sampled vintage analog synthesizers to over a dozen of soulful guitars. From large epic ensembles to beautiful custom instruments, we have dozens of them and virtually everything in between. However, the new Soundpaint 2.5 engine really represents significant additions to the free engine. First, we're now expanding the engine to have 8 different parts for really advanced sort of instrument or key switch design. Second, we have a new, beautiful and intuitive key switch rack. This allows us to do things that we've never been able to do before with key switching. We really sort of reinvented it all from scratch. And third, we now have our H.A.L 2.0 engine, which essentially supports unlimited, unrestricted polyphonic legato for all types of instruments. So it could be choirs, brass, strings, guitars, woodwinds, anything you can imagine in the world of legato, in the world of true polyphonic legato, is now supported as well. Fourth, we now have a randomizer. The randomizer is pretty much like rolling a dice. You can create new instruments just with a single click. It's super awesome. You can make up to 8 different parts randomized together and build brand new things. And fifth, we now have a new rack tips module. Tips is where we can tell stories to each other. We can also insert images and that way communicate what the intention was or the backstory behind any given program. And sixth, we now have a keyboard with labels on it as well. See this as an addition to the tips module. We can now communicate what is the intention of the layout of the keyboard. Maybe we have a legato range, maybe we have different hybrid instruments on different octaves. We can now tell the story about the layout on the keys as well. And seventh, we now have a new sound mode called Velocity Zoom. Velocity Zoom allows you to virtually create a felt instrument just with a single click. We can now zoom in on a given velocity range and expand that to become 127 different velocities. And eighth, we got a variety of improvements to the engine. For example, you can browse a lot faster now. You can also copy paste the matrix from one program now and apply it to another one. This makes it a lot easier for workflows. If you really have a lot of settings you like in one given program, you can just switch them and put them on another one as well. But in this video here, we're going to go through these 8 different chapters here, go in depth in all these new groundbreaking features. This really follows the mantra of the engine, which was always fast, furious, fun. It's just faster, more furious, and funner now. So yeah, let's begin here with the 8 parts. The way it's dynamic when you can combine so many different parts is hard to describe. Let me just take a single chord here and just move the mod wheel and just check how alive this string section is as it weaves through 127 discrete velocity layers. The width of the dynamic span is unlike anything I've ever played on a virtual instrument, and it's hard to describe. Can I just throw it to you through the camera? You just... Did that describe it? Sometimes the instrument should communicate, not me so much. Now, there are many ways we can use 8 different parts. For example, let's try to go inside of Soundpaint right now and just build a solo saxophone, but with multiple articulations. You'll see how the key switch module gradually gets populated. And you'll notice that I can just start dragging different articulations in all the different parts windows. And then up here, I'm going to switch the page and go to 5 and 8. Those are the additional slots. Let's add a legato here. Maybe a marcato as well, a couple of effects. And all of a sudden, we have an 8-part instrument here, a lot of saxophones. Now, if I go down here in the rack module and I click key switch, you'll notice that they're already assigned to different key switches. So that's one way of building an instrument really, really quickly and have all the different articulations associated to your key switches. Let me just play a little bit with it. It's pretty nice. That's 8 saxophones. We now have a full saxophone ensemble. But let's try another experiment. Let's try to build an actual ensemble of instruments. I've already created a program here that has 7 different woodwinds loaded in it. The sweet tune of legato coming from 7 different woodwind instruments, all available in Soundpaint right now. They're playing together as an ensemble. You'll notice that all the key switches are playing together here, just like we did with the saxophone. Now, it's 7 different instruments all playing legato, but I can also play them with as much polyphony as I want, also triggering legato. Isn't that beautiful? Now, there's one thing, and we'll come back to this in the key switch demonstration as well, that sets these key switches apart from anything else. And that is that I don't have to play them all together. I can do sometimes playing solo and then switch to ensemble. I can do anything I want. Now, there's a third way we can also use the 8 parts, and that's to go really deep on a single instrument, a little bit like we just did with the saxophone, but we can go even deeper. Let me just do a clean slate here on the instance and then load our 1928 piano here. I'm going to show you how you can break up a part into multiple parts. That's actually possible. And now with 8 different parts, we can really break an instrument apart. Let's torture the piano here for a second. So I'm going to load a sustain here, another sustain, a staccato, another staccato here. And now you'd imagine we're done. Well, if I go into sound mode here, you'll notice that we have release triggers and foot pedal here clicked on. That means that they're also playing, but we can also isolate them individually. In fact, inside of this part here are 3 parts. We have sustain, releases, and foot pedal, but I'm going to turn the release pedal and the foot pedal off here for both sustains. Then I'm going to go to the next page here, 5 to 8, and add the sustains again here. And this time around, I'm only going to isolate the foot pedal here. That way we can also control how much volume we want in that. Sometimes we can be picky about instruments. Sometimes something might stand out a little bit. This is a way you can really dissect an individual instrument into multiple parts here and then have full control over the volume. I love this piano. This is the free 1928 grand piano that comes with the library. It's my own piano. And one of the deepest motivations for creating Soundpaint was to be able to have this very piano in the most accurate representation possible, namely with 127 real-time rendered velocity layers. It makes a huge difference when you play the instruments. Rip the beautiful Sakamoto, one of my favorite composers. the power of combining multiple articulations together. In this case here, I'm using our Daster strings, both combining Normale and Sordino techniques for short notes on the full string ensemble here, really creating a lively and bubbly and extremely dynamic string section here. I cannot wait for you guys to try it here. What I was doing is essentially just play through the arp here. You can sort of note in what dynamic you want, but then notice on the mod wheel just how expressive it is. And that's just a couple of examples of what you can do with our 8 parts here, also in combination with our key switches. And speaking of key switches, now one of the most frequent requests we've gotten on YouTube and on our Discord channels is key switches. I was actually against having them in Soundpaint in the first place because I feel the keyboard is sacred. We don't want to have anything overlayered. So in order to do key switches, I wanted us to push the bar one step further and do things that we cannot do in conventional samplers like Contact. So that's what I want to show you here. Let me just start out by playing with a septet or 7 different woodwinds, all playing legato. I'll play them individually first, but then notice what happens as I start clicking multiple key switches here together. Conventional key switches, I click them down here to set which instrument I want to choose. You'll notice here that we have 7 different woodwinds loaded here, but down here on the key switches on the keys, I can now control exactly what instrument I want to play, as I just did. That's how it works in Contact. That's like how it's been the last 20 years or so. But now, logically enough, we can just combine them. So let's say, for example, I want to combine like the flute and the alto flute. I now just click these 2 key switches and we're game. Now we can play them polyphonically as well. In Soundpaint, legato and polyphonic legato just works like a piano. So I'm going to hold down the sustain pedal. So sweet. I can do whatever I want. Let's take like 4 key switches. And I can also sort of play different notes and do key switches in the middle of them. And for those of you who like to orchestrate and really look for orchestral colors, using the key switches in combination is great. Let me just play the same notes here, but change the key switches and just listen carefully for how the colors are changing. This is really great for orchestration. I think you get the gist of it. We can combine legato articulations with other articulations by combining key switches together. They'll lay over each other. So right now I was doing these phrases, then playing a little bit with legato, then going back to the phrases. This is another way of using alternating use of the key switches, but see them more as living together in a pool. They're all alive. They're not these sort of isolated things. We can combine them. We can overlay them together, do anything we want, the way it should always have been, in my opinion. And key switches also come really handy when we're dealing with articulations from the human voice. Once we're in syllable, choir, solo vocals kind of world. Here's a little sneak peek at our upcoming opera soprano Maria library. So this is the way we're going to control our choirs, our solo voices inside of Soundpaint as well. Now, you probably want to hear this opera singer with legato as well. And in that regard, we're going to move on to the next chapter in this video, which is our new H.A.L 2.0 technology. H.A.L stands for Hyper Acoustic Legato, and it's the most advanced legato technology I've ever come across, and it's something we're continuing to build. The new H.A.L 2.0 engine supports all instruments when it comes to legato, so it can be an opera singer, it can be strings, it can be brass, it can be choirs, solo vocals, anything we can imagine is now capable in H.A.L 2.0. And this really marks a big step forward for us because we can convert any type of library now into Soundpaint from our old contact catalog or build brand new things and really utilize all the capabilities of H.A.L. One being that we can now play polyphonic legato, but as you're about to see, we can do so many more things as well. Here's an example with the opera singer just playing what we call two-syllable legato, meaning that she's alternating between phrases when I go into legato mode. And I'll also play that polyphonically. It's really freaky because we're playing a real opera singer with all the emotional intention in there, also polyphonically if you want. It's an operatic trio. I've never heard that before. Let me just try something just for funsies here and set the pitch bender to 12 both up and down. One of the benefits as well in Soundpaint is that we can take legato instruments and do more to them. Let me do the same thing here to two dual flutes. This is a regular flute and an alto flute in combination. I'm going to play legato for both of them. We got the touch module at minus and plus 12, so we can do some pretty extreme things in legato and polyphonically. I love those dark winds. They're so sweet down here. Such unique, murky, sweet colors. I don't know, have fun with the legatos. I also think for Soundpaint, as we go deeper into the orchestral realm, as we keep maturing our H.A.L, our hyperacoustic legato technology, that we're gonna break the notion a little more of what we can do with orchestral instruments. I don't necessarily just look them as these sort of static creatures like we have them in Contact now. I can make them into something entirely different and just have fun with them here. Also because of the polyphonic legato, you can do it in two different ways. If you go in here and you take our legato time up here, that essentially counts as your sustain pedal. You don't have to play with overlapping notes like we have to in Contact as well. So right now I'm not using the sustain pedal, but because time is up here, it's sustaining. Or I can take the legato time down here and just hold down my sustain pedal and essentially play the polyphonic legato like it's a piano. Real human beings inside of the samples. It's important. And one of the most liberating things about H.A.L 2.0 in combination with our new Keyswitches is that I can both play individual instruments and create my unique colors in real time here, just like we did with the woodwinds earlier on. Check this one out. infinite instruments in an infinitely modular engine, what better to do than to shake the whole thing up one more time and add a randomizer. A new randomizer allows us to take any part we want, even up to 8 parts, and have the engine just roll the dice and create something entirely new. So right now, I'm just going to click on the dice and make some instruments in real time here. It's just a single click, but sometimes beautiful, happy accidents happen. I'll click like 1 and 2 up here, indicating that we're only randomizing those 2 parts. And then let's roll the dice. Oh, sweet. Opera singer and clarinet runs. How beautiful. Violins playing minor trills together with an alto flute playing Legato on a decatry. How sweet. Bamboo wind chimes and clarinet legato. Clicks of a bassoon combined with what must be like a shadowy kind of Bartok conligno. That's so cute. It's a flutter-tone coming from a sax combined with a Juno 60. And as you can see, I'm just clicking this stuff in real time here and just generating new crazy things. Right? That's the noise coming from this old vintage synthesizer combined with a clarinet. Just a unique texture I've never heard before. How sweet. A piccolo and an alto flute combined. I'm sure that's more contemporary sort of classical color. And speaking of contemporary classical colors, a baritone saxophone playing this very breathy kind of sound. It almost sounds like vinyl crackle to me, but then combined with a piccolo flute. I would never have thought of that. How beautiful is this texture? And one of the beautiful things in Soundpaint is that all instruments live across the entire key here. It's really phenomenal also for adapter strings when you play violins as basses or basses as violins. Or in this case here, let me just explore the piccolo on its own here. So beautiful, so bubbly, and then we add the baritone on top. So sweet. This feels like a Mellotron kind of deal. How sweet is that? Well, we do have one more feature that's also in the category of like supersonic cotton candy features, and that's our new velocity zoom. Now, most instruments tend to have a sweet spot, dynamically speaking. Most of the time when you hit an instrument really hard, it sort of gets kind of harsh. Even with a snare, if you hit it too hard, it almost just sounds kind of crashy, and with guitars and most instruments, they kind of get pitchy when you hit them too hard. So a lot of the lyrical sweetness inside of instruments tend to reside in the lower velocities, hence our new velocity zoom. Now, in Soundpaint, we have full control over velocities because we're real-time rendering new samples all the time. So I got the idea of limiting the amount of velocities to whatever amount you want. For example, if you go into sound mode here, you'll notice this piano here has 1 to 30 when it comes to velocity zoom, meaning that it's not 127 layers, it's only the first 30 layers that are playing. Now, because we can render the files in real time, those 30 now become 127, but only within that range. And that gives us almost like a felt instruments generator in real time. No matter what instrument you put in here, it just becomes super sweet that way. But again, with 127 layers of full playability. This is our 1928 piano for free in Soundpaint. Let me just play that in a very soft felt kind of fashion. Well, it doesn't matter how hard I hit the keys actually, it's going to be felt no matter what, because I only have 30 velocities or 127 velocities within those 30. That makes sense? You're probably noticing there's a lot of hiss and felt kind of noises here. I can control that on the mod wheel here. Because Soundpaint is modular, we can use effects on top of the velocity layers and sort of highlight different frequencies. What I did here is use our EQ5. And you'll notice here when I move the mod wheel that I'm enhancing some more of the air frequencies. And because we didn't use noise reduction when we created this piano, everything is retained in there, even the sort of analog noise. And it's beautiful if you really, really want an extremely felt vibe. Just move it all the way up here and you're like completely just sitting with the most like lively, bubbly, super intimate recording. Only 30 velocities. We can take it even further down here. Let's just go down to like 15 or something. And we can also play with the noise. So like. Oh my God, down here. What a sweet, sweet note. Let me try to show you velocity zoom on a couple of other instruments as well. Let's take the steel drums here, for example. You'll notice I go into sound mode here, and the steel drums are now reduced to 80. If I play it with 127, you're going to get that very sort of pingy top note. Almost you can hear it sort of gets detuned. That's what I talk about when we really get into those harder velocities. It gets almost too much. Let's just save it off down to like 80 here. And all of a sudden we don't have that super top layer, but we now have 80 velocities. Well, 127 within those. You hear how it's more sweet? We're now getting more down in that lyrical range. We can go all the way down to, let's say, like 40 here. You hear how how it's like more soft now? That's velocity zoom in essence, and that felt sort of music generator. It just cuts off that top. Now, we can also do the opposite way. Let's say we really just want to have like super punchy steel drums. I'm going to set it to 100 to 127 now, so they're going to be beating no matter what. But you notice how it's generating new round robin as well? Even if we only restrict it between 100 and 127, you can just go new samples every single time. That's one of the beautiful things about having full control over your own audio format. Let me take another one here. This is using VeloZoom or velocity zoom on our picked terts guitar, this beautiful guitar that was used in Sting's Shape of My Heart. But now we're shaping off a little more from it here. If you notice, it's down to 90. So we're again cutting off that top layer, sort of giving it a little more of a lyrical quality and not that super hard layer they get on the top. Now, let me just set that up to 127, play something similar again. Here's another example used on our Glockenspiel ensemble. This is one of my favorite unique ensemble patches we've ever made. We got a Glockenspiel ensemble in a hall and just recorded them that way. But they can also be kind of pingy when you hit them hard. So in this case here, I just limited down to 20 velocities. If there was such a thing as velvety or soft glass, that would be it. Organic glass, how beautiful. Now, let me just show you one last example of velocity zoom here on our Daster strings. In this case here, I took the whole string section, but I limit the amount of velocities as well, all the way down to 20. So it's a really soft section. They're already playing Sordino, some of them. So it's extra soft strings. That's the essence of velocity zoom. Now, you'll notice here, when we have all these different programs, that we now have a new module called Tips. Tips is a way for us to communicate to you, or for you to communicate to us or to your friends, what's going on in the program, what's the intention behind it here. So it's very simple. You can just drag and drop any kind of picture you want into the module, and now it's already saved. So just drag and drop here. You'll see the best resolution number in here as well. I like to go double of that just for Retina, but that's up to you. Drop the picture in here, and you now have a picture. If you want to edit the text, you just click down here, and you can now tell your story as well. That's how simple it works. Drag and drop images, type your story, save the program, and be done with it. You don't have to think about anything else. We automatically store the images, the text, and all that. It's contained within the program file. We just thought it was a neat way for us to be able to communicate more about what we're doing with the libraries, especially as we're about to venture into deep orchestral sampling and really more advanced kind of programming, velocity zoom, morph shading on the mod wheel, 127, this and that. It's a way for us to communicate what's the intention behind the program, and you'll often notice that we have hints in there as well. We're going to be issuing a variety of updates to existing Soundpaint libraries over the many next months using our new Tips module here. But we're also going to be adding one more thing, and that's our new labels. Labels is a way for us to communicate what's going on here in the key bed. It's one of the most frequent requests we've gotten in terms of like making the experience a little bit easier for people, so you can now see what's in the given octaves here. I thought it could be interesting to just do that all the way from scratch. So I'm going to load in, for example, our hybrid emotions, which has unique samples per octave here, and then try to build a program from scratch just so you can see how it's done with labels, and also how we can add tips inside of it as well. So I'm just gonna go up here and create a clean slate. I'm gonna go into parts here and I'm gonna go into hybrid emotions and load the love emotion here. So I'm gonna move my mouse down here to keyboard and click on it. Now you'll see our playable keyboard, but notice what happens here when I drag the mouse here over the different keys. You see that plus sign down here? That's our new label maker, if we can call it that. Let me click down here on this note. Okay, so that's the boom region of the instrument here. I'm gonna click on the plus sign here, and now I have the label maker opened here. I'm gonna type in booms here, and then I'm gonna move the label here because I know the booms are going from this octave all the way up to the next one here. And then beginning on the next octave, we have more sort of impactful sounds, impacts. So I'm gonna click here on this C note here and start a new label. And then move that up here as well, and we're gonna call these guys impacts. So we now have our tonal booms, and we have our impacts. But there's more going on up here as well. But let's make a little bit of a distinction. The impacts are a little bit different, so I'm gonna give them a slightly different color here. Let's make those guys red. This next octave here is more like arcing swell effects, so we're gonna call these guys arcs here. I'm gonna click here, click to edit, call them arcs, choose another color. And then we have 2 octaves up here, I believe, of ambiances. So let's gonna make another one here. Call it ambiances, and then stretch it up 2 octaves here. And now we have ambiances laid out as well. That's how labels work. And just like our tips, when I save the program, the labels will automatically be saved here as well. We'll be issuing again a variety of updates, both with tips and labels for existing Soundpaint instruments, and you can also create them on your own. This is not just our way of talking to you, but it's also a way for you to take notes for yourself, especially when you make your own programs, your own instruments. You can now make the labels as well and just sort of communicate, hey, now remember where these different things are. It just makes life a little bit easier. Sweet. But let's do a little more to this program here as well. I'm gonna go in here and open our tips module. I'm just gonna drag in an image I prepared, a loving kind of sphere. I'm gonna write a little bit about love here and copy paste it in. And then I like to have a hint in here as well, which tells me like, hey, what's the intention behind the program here? Let's try to mess this one up a little bit here. I'm gonna go inside of our effects section and go into delays and choose an analog rain delay here. And then I'm gonna right click on deviation and associate it to my mod wheel, which should give us like pitch fluctuations in the sound. Beautiful. I'm gonna go back into our tips module, double click here. Mod wheel controls the pitch fluctuation of the analog rain delay. That's like Blade Runner right there. I'm gonna go up here, call my program, let's say hybrid emotion love rain TF. Save that baby and be done with it. That's how easy it is. So if I load another program and then go back to the program I just had, you'll notice here that both the labels and the image is contained within it. It's super simple. You don't have to think about directories or where to save things. Just drag and drop your images, type a story, create some labels, save the whole thing and be done with it. Now, as you noticed here in this program, I created this sort of fluctuation of analog rain on the mod wheel here. Let's say I want to put that on another program. So I want the very same setup we just did, but applied to maybe a piano or something. I'll go back here and load our felt velocity air piano now. But if you notice here, the matrix is whatever that program is. But I can now copy paste the matrix from my old program and superimpose it on this one here. So if we go back to Hybrid Cinema here, you'll notice we have the program here. I'm gonna right click and say load as preset, no parts. It now took everything from that program and put it on the piano here. So we should have analog rain on the piano. Oh, that's a rain piano. So that's essentially copy-pasting the entire matrix of a program, including tips and labels, and putting it on another program as well, making life a little bit easier. We also have one more feature in that regard, and that's the ability to copy-paste labels on their own. So let's say that you have a hybrid library, for example, here, and you know the layout is going to be the same for all your different programs. You can now go into another program here, which has no labels, and then right-click on a program that does have labels, and will now load those labels into the new program as well. So in short, we now have the ability to copy-paste the matrix from one program to another. It will include the tips, it will include the labels. It just makes life a little bit easier. And speaking of making life a little bit easier, another comment we've gotten is that sometimes our program names can become a little bit lengthy. If you notice down in the browser here, you'll see when I hover over it that the program name is in its full size here, but it doesn't have to be. It's a new option we have inside of the browser where you can limit the file names so you can just get to the sweet spot of it and not have to deal with all the sort of heavy library stuff sometimes. You can fully control that if you go into settings here, go down to UI preferences and then down to browser settings. In the bottom here, you'll notice it says browser name optimization. That essentially puts you into the fast lane of libraries. We don't have to deal with all our deep library names, which we like to have for consistency because we can find things faster. But right now, if you sort of know your libraries already, you'll just get the sweet spot of them and thereby being able to navigate a little bit faster. Again, the mantra of fast, furious, fun inside of Soundpaint, even in boring library stuff. I'm a librarian by heart and I love library stuff. I want to be able to find my stuff the fastest way possible, but I also want to be able to read in the fastest way possible. So this is one of those constant workflow optimizations that we'll keep adding to Soundpaint just to sweeten the experience a little more. And that's essentially Soundpaint 2.5. The journey really began with the notion of key switches. We wanted to do them the right way, so we can now play all of them together, individually, pairs, whatever you want to do. And then also sort of learning from that and going like, hey, we're going to need 8 parts for choirs, vocal libraries, things that need more advanced kind of phrasing. And then all of a sudden learning like, oh my God, this actually works great for creating ensembles as well, being able to pair unique instruments together and having a level of sonic freedom that I've never had before. I could just get there faster. The instruments perform better on the keys. Things are loading faster. I can browse faster. I can put my tips and labels, make things faster. I probably said fast like 100 times in this video, but it's really the underlying notion of the engine. Like ideally, this whole UI should get out of the way so I can just be in the keys and create in the fastest way possible, like we do with real instruments. I often find that the gratification of a real instrument is exactly what we're missing in software. So with all heart and intention, that's what we're trying to do with Soundpaint. So thanks for watching so much. Like I know this is probably a way too long video, but we've been working pretty hard on it. I should also mention just very last here that if you're a developer and you're curious about developing for Soundpaint, we have some extraordinary tools that allows us to convert from Contact with great ease. We have the biggest Contact catalog in the world, so we had to build very accommodating tools to convert all our libraries, and we can virtually do it with a couple of clicks now. So yeah, this is Soundpaint 2.5. My name is Troels. Thank you so much for watching. It's such a blessing to be able to do this for you guys, and I'm so humbled by the support, especially from the community. You guys really help us shape a better engine experience here, and hopefully we get to surprise you a little bit in the process too. So, thank you.
New piano? I have this, right?
It's the 28. It's just a different instrument because we're restricting the velocities. But you have 127 felt velocities now.
Greatest song ever written. Sick.
So Nick, it goes for all instruments, and
Yeah.
you can do this velocity zoom on everything where you just restrict it, because I find the sweet spot for me is in the lower dynamics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like the.
No, it's great, man, because like you can take